Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So with the recent finale for Season 2 aka Series 15, we saw the end for not just the season, but Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor as well. And it's fair to say that I wasn't happy to see him go after such a short tenure. I was just starting to get used to 15 and come to like what Ncuti was doing with the part. So not long after I'd seen the reality warp for the first, and so far only time at the cinema, I started thinking about what could have been, what a third season for the 15th Doctor could have been like. And given what little has trickled out about the original ending for the reality war, I thought I'd construct an entire what-if scenario about it. So, here it is. Here is my take on what if Ncuti Gatwa had third season. So we're going to start off with some changes to the reality war, namely it now has a shorter runtime of 60 minutes. Obviously everything from Poppy being erased onwards was part of the reshoots that were done earlier this year in real life, once Ncuti had decided to leave early. I reckon the original plan was for him to do the standard 3 seasons before he changed his mind amid all the uncertainty surrounding the future of the Disney deal and Season 3. So all those scenes leading to 15's regeneration now no longer exist in this alternate timeline. Instead, we'll just say that Poppy continues to exist thanks to the Zero Room that Susan Twist was somehow able to make. Omega probably gets a bit more screen time, something like an extra 5 minutes maybe, where he tries to destroy the universe. The Doctor and the two Ranis retreat to Conrad's room, where Mrs. Flood turns on her future self with Conrad's assistance, as I feel like that was kind of what was being set up in Wishworld. She then asks the Doctor if he has a plan, explaining that she is only allying herself with him because it suits her interests at the moment. The Doctor explains how he's going to use the combined power of the Vindicator and TARDIS to send Omega back into his tomb. Omega by now has transformed into a humanoid form based around his original design from 3 Doctors. And he's now played by Brian Blessed, who played him in an audio not too long ago for Cutaway Comics. I'm saying all of this because I personally would have preferred that over the generic giant CGI skeleton form we got in real life. I mean, I know that Russell would doubtless have still had the idea to supposedly evolve Omega into that CGI generic looking monstrosity, but this is, basically my own take, my own created timeline, so I thought I may as well kind of base it on what I personally would have preferred rather than what is kind of more likely to have happened, if that makes sense. Anyway, Omega is about to unleash a huge wave of time and antimatter energy to destroy the universe, when the Doctor, Ruby, Conrad and the two Ranis return to the Bone Palace. The Archie Punjabi Rani grabs the Vindicator and blasts its energy at Omega. I feel like it makes more sense for the Rani to have done this than the Doctor, because the Doctor is supposedly against killing people. She overloads it, killing him in the process. The Doctor is searching for the TARDIS when he sees what she's done and is horrified. But the Rani then turns the device on the others, especially Mrs. Flood, who she wishes to get her vengeance on for supposedly betraying her. But then Mel appears from behind her via a time hotel door and knocks the Vindicator out of the Rani's arms. Mel then hands it to the Doctor, who uses both his and the Rani's sonics to destroy it. Mrs. Flood then sees her chance and shoots her future self right in the back, saying that she's finally had enough of her screwing things up. She then nicks the Rani's time ring and a suspicious-looking golden tooth from her pocket and vanishes. The Rani then stumbles off herself, mortally injured and close to regenerating. Ruby then uses the powers of the Wish Baby God, Desiderium, however you pronounce that, to give Conrad a better life and to undo his wish world and return the Earth to normal. And then Belinda and Poppy come out of the Zero Room, and we come to the Reality War's original ending. Now, according to various rumours and leaks that have been doing the rounds across social media since the episode aired, this original ending would have seen the Doctor, Belinda, Ruby and all the unit gang have a party to celebrate their victory, and it finally being the 24th of May at a local nightclub. Susan watches them from afar with her stood next to Poppy, who is obviously now not removed from the timeline. She picks Poppy up and then says to her, "Let's go, Mum." And then the credits roll. Assuming that this was indeed the original ending for the episode, I'm going to use it for this scenario. In terms of why Ncuti stays on for a third season, we'll say that basically things go more to the original plan, so his first season is more of a success on Disney+, leading to them renewing their deal with the BBC and Bad Wolf much sooner. So, with a third season now no longer being somewhat in doubt, Gatwa continues as the Doctor. Although I suspect that, even if they'd have filmed seasons 3 and 4 back to back, season 3, aka series 16, would be his last in this alternate timeline, as he's still a very up-and-coming actor who's eager to do other projects, especially return to his roots, as it were, in the theatre. There's obviously no season 2 reshoots now, and filming for season 3 lasts from February to September of 2025, starting with that year's Christmas special. I believe that was what the original plan was going to be, and I believe that Ncuti was even going to say that in a Graham Norton interview, I think last Christmas. It then got deleted before that episode aired. But yeah, the Christmas special would be called The 12 Days of Christmas and is written by Russell T Davies himself. We'll say that in this alternate timeline, this special is the one Russell had originally tried to write for the previous year's Christmas season, but had a lot of difficulty getting it right, leading him to ask Stephen Moffat to write Joy to the World in its place. This isn't the case in reality, of course, but as we don't know much about what that original 2024 Christmas special would have been, I'm going to have all of this be the case for this scenario anyway. The 12 Days of Christmas sees the Doctor spending the festive season with Ruby, Belinda, and both of their respective families, as well as the unit team, and Poppy of course. But then he becomes aware of this new app that's becoming really popular with young children. Maybe this is through Poppy or something, I don't know. They're downloading it onto their phones, but aren't really too sure why, as it seems to just be a countdown to something in the style of the old 12 Days of Christmas Carol. There's also a series of child disappearances related to the app, which causes the Doctor and co to investigate, and discover that it's all part of an elaborate plan by Krampus, another member of the Pantheon of Discord, to kidnap the children in Pied Piper-like style. He's using the app to hypnotize them and then drive them away from their parents, as he's seen the mess humanity has got itself into, and doesn't think that there's any hope that the younger generation will be any better once they've all grown up. The Doctor and co all save the day and then celebrate Christmas Day all together at Unit HQ. Then we come to Season 3, which starts airing on the 21st of March 2026, and then finishes on the 9th of May, just a week before that year's Eurovision final probably airs. Anyway, here's the episodes for this alternate Season 3. Episode 1, Horror of the Daleks by Russell T Davies. The TARDIS lands in modern-day Huddersfield. The Doctor meets his new companion, Frankie Jones, played by Jessica Gunning, for the first time. They discover that a small group of Daleks are conducting highly immoral genetic experiments on the local populace to breed a new race of Daleks, as there aren't loads of them left after all the devastation from the Flux. This puts the Doctor in a slight dilemma, as whilst what the Daleks are doing is wrong, they're only really doing it in a desperate bid for survival. But he and Frankie ultimately defeat them, and the Doctor invites Frankie on board the TARDIS, which she accepts. I thought it'd be great to finally grant Ncuti's wish to face off against the Daleks, and so here we are. And I went with Huddersfield as not only is Gunnin herself from Holmfirth, which isn't too far away from it, but I also live in Yorkshire myself and have always wanted a show to visit it more often in its stories. I know Series 11 visited Sheffield a lot, but still. And I decided to cast Gunnin as RTD tends to like casting people who have been in big streaming hits of the past few years, i.e. Ncuti Gatwa with Sex Education and Verada Sefu with Andor. And since Gunnin would have recently been in one with Baby Reindeer, I thought it made sense to go with her. So too, The Mockery of Man by Russell T Davies. For her first trip in the TARDIS, Frankie wants to go back in time to some point in history. But when the Doctor tries to fulfill her wish, the TARDIS is knocked completely off course by an unknown force, and is instead transported to a small void-like pocket dimension, which exists just outside of the realms of the main universe. There, they meet beings who look like gigantic wooden art mannequins. These mannequins are curious by the Doctor and Frankie's forms and wish to dissect them so that they can replicate humanoid flesh and blood forms for themselves, and then use the TARDIS to journey into the main universe, to wipe out all other life forms and have it for themselves. The Doctor and Frankie manage to defeat the mannequins and escape back to the main universe in the TARDIS. This surreal story does probably remind some of you of the Masters of Luxor in terms of overall themes anyway. Its title even comes from the title for episode 2 of that unmade story. Maybe Russell comes to some kind of agreement with Steph Coburn which allows him to do this, although that doesn't seem all that likely, so it would need to be emphasised how different it is to Luxor, which, to be fair, beyond them touching on a few of the same themes, they are pretty different. Episode 3, Dancing Fever by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. The TARDIS lands in Strasbourg, France in 1518. The Doctor and Frankie see the famous dancing plague firsthand and discover that it's all the work of another member of the Pantheon of Discord, the God of Dancing, the choreographer played by Ben Whishaw. He's a brother of Maestro, explaining their similar powers. He's running havoc by making all the locals dance for weeks on end until they die from exhaustion. The Doctor must defeat him by challenging him to a campy dance-off to the death. Yeah, this would obviously be Frankie's long kind of promised trip to the past, and yeah, I thought it'd be great to just have Kate Herron and Bryony Redman come back to the show. Episode 4, A Girl Called Poppy by Juno Dawson. The Doctor decides to visit Belinda and Poppy and see how they're getting on. Belinda, for context, had decided to stay on Earth as she had finally been reunited with her parents and wants to raise Poppy as her daughter. Belinda then proceeds to tell him and Frankie all about how eventful the past couple of days been for her. Via flashbacks, we find out that it all started when Belinda tried to enroll Poppy into a local nursery. But the nursery and the neighbourhood surrounding it have recently been experiencing mysterious electrical shortages. Various technicians have checked the generator, but can't find anything wrong with it. Belinda decides to investigate further and discovers that goblins, the same ones from the church on Ruby Road, although Belinda obviously doesn't know this, are behind it all. They're tampering with the electrical supplies to feed a creature that consumes electricity, a Voltgeist. Based off the Raju, I might have mispronounced that, so apologies if I have, from Japanese mythology. The Voltgeist has the appearance of a shimmering wolf type of creature, looking like a ghostly form of static electricity. It has promised the goblins that it will help resurrect their king if it's given enough power, but it tricks the goblins and wishes to drain the Earth's entire electrical output instead, making it extremely powerful so that it can destroy the Earth and the goblins. But the Voltgeist has a weakness: water. So Poppy pours a bucket of water all over it, intending to just play with it, but she ends up inadvertently saving the day instead. This episode is therefore another Dr. Light one for Ncuti's era, and has a slightly farcical, light-hearted feel, similar to the last episode. This is to contrast the much darker tone that the rest of the season has. Episode 5, The Cyber Brain by Russell T. Davies and Pete McTighe. The Doctor and Frankie find themselves on a human colony planet in the far future. The entire human population is pretty lazy, and lets their robotic servants do all the hard and menial work, whilst they live a life of luxury. But a central command's AI begins to gain sentience, and becomes frustrated with how it and its fellow robots are treated by the humans. So it decides to have its revenge on them, converting all of them into very primitive looking Cybermen, probably some kind of hybrid design featuring elements of the original Mondasian 10th planet and Telosian Cybermen designs. The AI then becomes the Cyber Planner, with the whole story serving as effectively a sort of origin story for it. The Doctor and Frankie try their best to rescue the humans, even if they do admit that they were really lazy, but it's too late, and they're powerless to stop the chain of events. RTD and McTighe write this to tie in with the recent rise of AI in real life and its potential dangers. Episode 6, The Red Earth Cries by Joel Correkazi, with help from Inua Ellams. The TARDIS lands during the middle of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The Doctor knows that they can't interfere, but this causes tension between him and Frankie when she befriends a Tutsi family that's on the run. At Frankie's insistence, the Doctor reluctantly decides to help the family escape, as Frankie reasons that just because history has to stay in place doesn't mean that everyone has to die. The family's friends are also saved, including their local pastor and teacher of the children. The Doctor and Frankie then travel to the present and lay flowers at the Kigali Genocide Memorial in solemn silence, with the episode finishing off with a caption on a black screen saying, "In memory of those lost in the Rwandan genocide of 1994. This episode would carry a heavy personal meaning for Ncuti himself, as he and his family escaped the genocide when he was very young. I've put the "with help from Inua Ellams" bit because Correkazi would be new to the show and to TV as a whole, I think. Also, apologies if I'm mispronouncing his surname. So having someone who recently wrote their own story advise and help him a little seems like a good idea. It would still be very much Correkazi's episode though, and yeah, there would be some similarities to the fires of Pompeii. Episodes 7 and 8, An Unearthly Reunion / The World Turned Upside Down by Russell T. Davies. The two-part finale where everything comes to a head. The main arc for the season will be Susan's return, with her having made cameo appearances in every episode, just like with Susan Twist and Mrs. Flood. But the Doctor is unaware of most of these, as she doesn't actually meet him for them. However, after Frankie tells him that an elderly woman claiming to be his granddaughter spoke to her towards the end of the Red Earth Cries, when they're saving the family and all their friends, the Doctor decides to head to Unit HQ to ask for Kate Stewart's help with tracking Susan down. Anita from Joy to the World then reappears for a third time, having already been in both Joy to the World and The Reality War, of course. She's held at gunpoint by the Mrs. Flood Rani, who taunts the Doctor by saying that she'll release Anita and take him to see Susan if he and the whole of UNIT surrender themselves to her. He reluctantly agrees, and Mrs. Flood does indeed take him to the control room of the Time Hotel, where Susan is locked in a makeshift cell. It is then revealed that the visions the Doctor had of her in the Interstellar Song Contest episode last season were all part of an elaborate trap by Mrs. Flood and a resurrected Master, still played by Sajid Khan. Mrs. Flood explains that she rescued the Master and freed him from the Toymaker's golden tooth so that they could work together to bring the Doctor down, once and for all. They plan to rewrite reality by using the combined powers of all the Pantheon members the Doctor's defeated and imprisoned over the past 3 years, as well as the gods of Ragnarok, who they will summon in the process of using this combination. They intend to rewrite things so that the Doctor's friends all turn on him, and all of his victories become defeats, like the Great Intelligence did in the name of the Doctor. In the cliffhanger to lead into the second part of the two-part finale, they then trap him in a hell dimension where he comes face to face with the Beast from the Impossible Planet / the Satan Pit. Ncuti, I believe, did once say that he wanted to go up against him after all. But Jonathan Groff's rogue character is trapped there too and rescues the Doctor from the Beast. They then work together to escape from the hell dimension, only to find that everyone from Frankie, Belinda, Ruby, Kate Stewart, etc. have all turned against the Doctor, and now worship the Master and Mrs. Flood. The Master now calls himself the Boss, and recruits the Meep and hypnotizes Anita in the past to leave little hints to himself scattered throughout the Doctor's recent timeline, to ensure that the Doctor is always led to this precise moment. The odds are completely stacked against the Doctor, with him knowing that he won't make out of this battle against the combined forces of the Master, Mrs. Flood, the Gods of Ragnarok, and the Beast alive. With just Rogue left by his side, who recognizes the Master as being his new boss but is unaffected by the changes to reality due to him being stuck in the Hell Dimension for a while, the Doctor must make the ultimate sacrifice, as well as come to terms with revelations such as Poppy being Susan's mother. So the Doctor thinks he has to sacrifice himself in order to defeat Mrs. Flood and the Master and correct reality to how it should be. But he's stunned to discover that once he's done all of this, he's still alive, and with no regeneration being necessary. He then defeats the Gods of Ragnarok, despite them trying to trick and distract him by revealing that he's just a character in a TV show, causing some trippy meta type of self-doubt in him for a few minutes, before he remembers what happened in Lux with Lizzie, Robin, and Hassan. He sends the Beast back to the Hell Dimension and goes back in time to make sure that Rogue still arrives there. With him being supposedly victorious, he happily celebrates with all of his friends, but then he realizes that someone is missing. No, more than that, two people are missing. His wish-created daughter Poppy and his granddaughter Susan. He realizes that this is his true end for his current incarnation. He has to sacrifice himself to bring them both back into existence. After explaining all of this to the others and sharing one final kiss with Rogue, the Doctor sets off in the TARDIS. He then unleashes a huge wave of regeneration energy inside a black hole that's outside the TARDIS. This restores Poppy and Susan to the universe, but also causes his regeneration. Susan appears in the TARDIS, with her explaining that she came back to life in there, as the universe knew that her place was beside her grandfather whilst he regenerates. He and the Doctor have a touching hug and smile at each other before Susan pilots the TARDIS back to Belinda's home. There, she and the Doctor meet Belinda, Frankie, Ruby, Kate, and a restored Poppy. After a few minutes, Doctor and Susan depart in a TARDIS, which then leads to the Doctor's regeneration. Ncuti's final words in the part are still the same as they were in real life. It has been an absolute joy. And his face merges into a completely new one. The 16th Doctor, played by Ambika Mod, one of the people who not too long ago were rumoured to be replacing him in a leak or two on social media. And then, well, that's it for this alternate season 3. Ambika Mod's 16th Doctor would have her first full story be the 2026 Christmas special, but that's all for 15 himself, so I won't go any further for this video. But if you'd like to see a part 2 to this, where I detail what comes next, please let me know below. I know some of this undoubtedly sounds a bit much and possibly too fanfiction-y, but I was just trying to capture the type of feeling that the current RTD2 era has arguably had for the past few years. I felt like the Doctor sacrificing himself to bring Poppy back was a nice way for 15 to leave in real life, so that's why I used a similar idea for his regeneration in this scenario. I'm sure that Russell's original plans for Season 3 probably weren't anything at all like this, and I'm sure that when it does finally air, as I think it definitely will with or without Disney's involvement, that everything I've said in this video will be contradicted. But I just wanted to come up with something anyway and use what little scraps of info that could be true from social media leaks and rumours as a basis for it. I do have two other ideas of potentially how a third Ncuti season could have gone, so I'll just quickly mention them. So there was something that I mentioned in my review for Wish World and Reality War, where at one point I thought that Ncuti wasn't going to regenerate just yet. Like, he was in the process of regenerating. Like, we'd already seen his hands glow with generation energy and all that kind of stuff. But then that's the whole point of season 3, would be him slowly succumbing to regeneration energy, like, throughout the whole of that season, and him trying to find and restore Poppy throughout that season. And then another idea that I had was one where it's more related to what has actually happened in real life, where Ncuti has regenerated into Billy Piper, but then it turns out that Billy Piper is literally kind of doing what David Tennant did for 60th, where he's only back for like a special or two to celebrate the new series' 21st or 22nd anniversary, depending on when those specials air. And then she actually degenerates back into Ncuti, who then does a third full season when like he's a lot more, when his schedule is like has been freed up from all the stuff that all of his other projects that he's currently now working on, such as the theatre stuff and a film I think he's also done recently as well. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention those other ideas I had for it. I should also say that like having the Master turn out to be the boss, like, probably feels like really obvious and a bit too of a generic of a conclusion, but then look at the way things have concluded over the past 2 seasons, and also I just kind of feel like it would be good to just have the Master come back and for Sacha Dhawan to play him again, because I think he was just really good in the part, and I'd have loved to have seen him go up against Ncuti's Doctor. That would have been a really fascinating pairing, I think. So yeah, it might have seemed like not the most satisfying conclusion, but there you go. That's what I kind of wanted to do anyway. There's my take on what if Ncuti Gatwa had a third season. What did you think? Do you like it or not? And would you have done anything differently? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. And if you haven't already, please feel free to join my What If Discord server, where you can chat to me and other fans about whatever you wish, join us for watch-alongs we do, and get updates from me on what the next What Ifs and general videos I'm thinking of doing are going to be. You can find a link to it in a pinned comment below, and I shall see you all in another video. So, until next time, bye bye!